So, what if I told you that one of the most common materials in body jewelry is completely and totally misunderstood? We're talking about Bioflex Blaker, and it turns out what the internet thinks it is and what it actually is are two very, very different things.
You know, you've got to hear this. This was the reaction from Patrick Poli, the guy who literally invented Bioflex, after he read an AI-generated article describing his own product. Can you imagine? The article was confidently explaining to him that his material was something he knows for a fact it's not.
And that contradiction right there, that's exactly why we're digging into this. There's this huge gap between the chatter online and the actual chemical reality. So today, we're going to set the record straight, and we're using the source material, the man who invented it, to do it.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with this internet identity crisis. Then we'll get into the actual science of what Bioflex is. After that, we'll look at the huge problem with counterfeits, check out the real-world evidence, and finally, wrap up with what this all means for the professionals out there. First up, the identity crisis. I mean, to really get why the truth matters so much, we have to understand the scale of the problem. And it all starts with some basic fundamental misinformation that has just spread like wildfire online. Just go online and search for it. You're going to see Bioflex called all sorts of things. Acrylic, PMMA, and yeah, most often thermoplastic urethane, or TPU. And this leads to some really bad advice, like saying you should only use it for a few weeks. But here's the kicker. According to the creator, every single one of those labels is just plain wrong. Okay, so if that's what it isn't, then what the heck is it? Let's clear the air and get into the actual chemistry, the real facts behind this material.
So here it is, the truth. Bioflex is a medical-grade random copolymer. Now that might sound technical, but what it means is that it's in the PPPR class of polymers. That puts it in a completely different chemical family from urethane, acrylic, or any of that other stuff you read about online.
And this is where the confusion becomes a really serious problem. On one side, you have this whole list of myths, and on the other, you have a single, precise, scientific reality. And trust me, this isn't just about getting the name right. It has huge implications for safety.
See, because it's a PPR copolymer, the genuine stuff just doesn't have the components that often cause issues with other flexible plastics. We're talking no urethane monomers, no PVC, and none of those plasticizers or flame retardants you sometimes find in cheaper knockoff materials. Now, to put its safety profile into perspective, let's talk numbers for a second. In Europe, they have these strict regulations called REACH. And for certain substances of very high concern, the safety limit is set at 1,000 parts per million. Remember that number, 1,000. Now, get ready for this. When they test certified genuine Bioflex, the level of those same substances comes in at less than 1 part per million.
Let's just let that sink in. This isn't just a little bit safer. It's 3 orders of magnitude below the limit. We're talking 1,000 times cleaner than the official safety regulations even require. It's on a whole other level. Okay, so this all begs a massive question, right? If the chemistry is this clear and the safety is this well documented, then why is there so much confusion out there? Well, the answer is a messy combination of counterfeit products and seriously flawed regulations.
So how in the world did we get here? Well, it's kind of like a 4-step domino effect. First, the real stuff was invented and certified. Then a flood of cheap, uncertified copies hit the market. Next, researchers started studying these copies, these generic, flexible polymers, and guess what? They found problems. And finally, the regulators wrote the rules based on the bad copies, not the original, high-quality material.
And that explains those really alarming statistics you might see floating around, like a study that found a 68% adverse event rate. That number almost certainly comes from data on the knockoffs. You just can't judge a premium material based on how its cheap imitations perform.
The creator really put it perfectly with this analogy. He said the whole situation is the regulatory equivalent of writing food safety rules around spoiled milk and then applying them to fine wine because both are liquids. It just makes no sense. It's a fundamental category error, and it's causing all this confusion.
All right, let's step away from the lab and the regulations for a minute and talk about the real world. Because Bioflex Bar has been used for a quarter of a century now, and that track record tells a very, very different story than these flawed studies.
A perfect example? Oral piercings. Think about it. A rigid metal bar is going to concentrate any impact, which can chip your tooth enamel or damage your gums. But Bioflex? It's flexible. It acts like a little shock absorber, protecting your teeth and gums from that impact. It's not an opinion, that's just physics.
The material's whole history shows this incredible commitment to safety. It was certified to these really tough ISO and FDA standards way before it was even required. And then in 2008, they developed an antimicrobial additive that's mixed right into the polymer itself, which means it can't just wear off.
So, with all this information on the table, what's the bottom line? What are the key takeaways for professional piercers and their clients? People who just want to make sure they're using the genuine, safe material.
The creator makes it really simple. It comes down to 3 clear steps. First, you have to verify your supplier. Second, don't just ask if it's safe, ask for the actual paperwork, like a REACH Article 33 declaration. And third, you have to understand that the current rules might not reflect the truth because of this whole counterfeit issue.
And here it is. This might be the most practical piece of advice in this whole thing. A supplier of genuine BioFlex should be able to get you official certification documents within 48 hours. If they can't, or they give you the runaround, do not stock their products. It really is that simple.
Ultimately, this whole complex issue just boils down to this one powerful statement from Patrick Poli himself. The material is right, the label is wrong, that is the correction. The material with its 25-year history and its medical-grade chemistry is right. The label that the internet and the regulators have put on it is wrong.
And that really leaves us with a final, much bigger question to think about. When it comes to safety, who really sets the standard? Is it regulators who might be working with flawed data? Is it industry groups? Or is it a material's actual proven 25-year track record in the real world? The answer to that matters, far beyond just the world of body jewelry.